I never planned on noticing her like that. At first, she was just my boss's cousin, someone I was supposed to be polite to when she stopped by the office. Mid-40s, elegant in a way that didn't need announcing, the kind of woman who seemed like she had already lived through entire chapters one hadn't even started. But the thing about her, it wasn't the way she looked. It was the way the air shifted when she walked into a room, like silence followed her, waiting. The first time I really spoke to her, it was nothing more than small talk. She had come to drop off some documents, hair tied loosely, a faint trace of perfume that lingered after she left. My coworkers barely noticed, but for some reason, I couldn't shake it. Maybe it was the way she listened, like my words mattered more than they should have. Weeks later, I found myself alone with her at my boss's house. A small dinner, most people had already left, and the rain outside made everything feel softer, quieter. She stood near the window, sipping wine, her hand wrapped around the glass like she was holding on to something fragile. "You're quiet tonight," she said without looking at me. I laughed under my breath. Maybe I'm not used to talking when people are actually listening. That made her glance back. Her eyes, dark, tired, alive all at once, met mine, and I swear my chest tightened. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Just that silence, heavy and unspoken, until she finally set her glass down. "I doubt people forget your words so easily," she said. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just shrugged, fingers tapping against my knee like a nervous tell. She noticed, of course. She noticed everything. That was what made it dangerous. Later, when the rain grew heavier and the others drifted out, I stayed behind, pretending to help clean up. She moved slowly through the kitchen, stacking plates, humming faintly. I kept stealing glances, hoping she wouldn't catch me. Except she did. "You watch people too much," she said softly, not accusing, more like she was stating a fact. Heat rose in my face. "Maybe I just notice things." Her lips curved, just slightly. "That can be a problem." The way she said it, it wasn't a warning. It was almost like an invitation. My pulse picked up, and for a second, I couldn't tell if I was being foolish or if she wanted me to keep standing there, close enough to feel the space between us tighten. I thought of all the reasons this was wrong. The age gap. The fact she was family, at least technically, of my boss. The fact I had no idea what she wanted, if anything. But none of that stopped me from wanting to ask her something, anything, to keep her voice near me. "Do you ever regret not saying things when you had the chance?" I asked. She froze at the sink, water running over her hands. Then she turned slowly, drying them on a towel, her eyes steady on mine. "All the time," she whispered. The room felt smaller after that. My heartbeat drowned out the rain, my hands useless at my sides. I didn't know if she'd move closer, if she'd walk away, or if I was supposed to. But I knew one thing: I didn't want that moment to end. Then, just as I opened my mouth, the sound broke everything, sharp, sudden. The doorbell rang. She looked at me, eyes unreadable, and for a second, I could swear she was waiting to see what I would do next. The doorbell rang again, sharper this time, and she moved past me to answer it. I stayed where I was, forcing myself to breathe. By the time she returned, whoever it was had left behind only a small bag on the porch, something from a neighbor, nothing important. But the interruption left its mark. The air had shifted again, like the moment we'd almost shared had folded itself back into silence. She poured herself another half-glass of wine, leaned against the counter, and for a while said nothing. I watched the way her thumb traced the rim of the glass, over and over. Finally she spoke, voice softer than before. "You asked about regret," she said. "That's a dangerous question." I hesitated. "Why?" "Because once you start naming them," she gave a small, humorless laugh, "you realize how many you've collected." I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to ask what she meant, who she meant. Instead, I found myself saying, "Everyone has regrets." "Not like mine," she replied, almost to herself. That quiet hit me harder than anything she could have admitted out loud. I thought about the lines at the corners of her eyes, the way she carried herself like someone who'd had to hold too much together for too long. She wasn't just my boss's cousin anymore. She was someone who had lived through storms I couldn't imagine, and somehow, I wanted to be the person she trusted enough to tell the truth to. "You've been married?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her gaze flicked up to mine, steady. "Once. A long time ago." She set the glass down. "He left when I was 31. Said he didn't want children." "I did." She pressed her lips together. "That was the first regret." I swallowed, unsure what to say. My own story suddenly felt small beside hers. "I've never even had something that serious. Just short things. People my age, they don't want anything heavy. They want weekends, pictures, distractions. And I broke off, embarrassed." She tilted her head. "And you?" "I want someone who actually sees me." The words hung there, heavier than I intended. Her eyes lingered on me, and I swear, for a second, I thought she might reach for me. Instead, she brushed her hair back, exposing the line of her neck, and looked away. "You shouldn't say things like that to me," she murmured. "I know," I admitted. But neither of us moved. The rain had softened to a drizzle, the house so quiet I could hear her breath when it caught. I thought about how risky this was. She was older, she was connected to my boss, she was everything I shouldn't want. And yet, every second in her presence felt sharper, more real than anything else in my life. Finally, she stepped closer, reaching past me to set her glass in the sink. Her sleeve brushed against my arm, barely, just enough to make my skin ignite. Neither of us said a word, but her pause lingered, deliberate. That single touch felt like the start of something we'd both regret, and still couldn't stop. The brush of her sleeve hadn't left me. It lingered on my skin long after she'd pulled back, like a secret only the two of us could feel. I wanted to say something, anything, but before I could, her phone lit up on the counter. A man's name. She grabbed it quickly, too quickly, and let it go dark again without answering. I looked at her. "You're not going to, no." Her voice cut sharp, then softened. "Not now." The silence between us stretched. My chest thudded with questions I didn't have the right to ask. Who was he? Was she still with someone? Did he matter? But I didn't dare press. Instead, I moved to collect the plates, needing something to do with my hands. She stopped me, her fingers catching my wrist, warm, deliberate. "Leave it!" Her eyes held mine, and for a moment I thought she would close the space between us. My heart surged up into my throat. I leaned, barely, recklessly, when the sound of a car door slammed outside. We both froze. Through the rain-streaked glass, headlights cut across the driveway. My boss. His voice carried as he called out a goodbye to someone, steps heavy toward the door. She stepped back from me so fast it felt like a door had slammed inside her chest. She pressed her palm flat against the counter, breathing hard, whispering, more to herself than me. "This is wrong. We can't." The front door opened. My boss walked in, shaking the rain from his coat, smiling at us like nothing in the world was out of place. "You two still here? Thought the party ended hours ago." I forced a laugh, too tight. "Just helping clean up." His cousin's expression was unreadable. Calm, polite. She slipped into it like armor, her hands steady now as she dried a dish, as though nothing had happened. But I saw the way her shoulders held tension, how her eyes flicked once toward me when he wasn't looking. It was there, unspoken. The moment wasn't gone, it was only hidden. "Good," my boss said, hanging up his coat. "She's stubborn about doing everything herself. Glad someone talked sense into her." She gave a practiced smile. "He didn't have a choice." I wanted to answer, to cut through the play-acting, but I bit my tongue. Every word felt dangerous. My boss busied himself with the leftover food, oblivious to the current running between us. When he stepped out again to grab something from his car, the kitchen went quiet. She set down the dishcloth, exhaled like she'd been holding her breath too long. Her voice barely rose above the hum of the rain. You need to go. Before this gets harder. I should have listened. I should have left. But instead, I stepped closer, close enough to catch the faintest trace of her perfume, close enough that my voice trembled. I don't want to. Her eyes met mine, wide, conflicted, unguarded for the first time that night. Her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, almost touching my face, then stopped inches away. We stood there, the distance burning between us. And then, just before she could decide, the sound of footsteps returned in the hallway. She dropped her hand. I stepped back. But the look we shared told me everything. This wasn't over. After my boss left the kitchen again, the silence returned, heavier than before. She didn't look at me right away. Instead, she reached for the wine, poured a splash into her glass, and downed it in one swallow. Her hands trembled as she set it down. You don't understand, she whispered, voice rough. You think this is simple, but it isn't. If anyone ever, she broke off, shaking her head. It would ruin everything. I stepped closer, too close. Then tell me to stop. Tell me you don't feel it, and I'll walk away. Her eyes finally lifted to mine, and what I saw there wasn't denial. It was fear. Fear, and something deeper she didn't want me to name. I shouldn't, she said. You're too young. I'm too what? My voice was sharp, sharper than I meant. Too alive? Too impossible to ignore? Do you think I care about the years between us? Her lips parted, but no words came. The air between us felt electric, charged with everything we weren't saying. My pulse hammered as I leaned in, not touching her, just close enough to feel her breath catch. Then she turned away suddenly, pressing her palms flat against the counter. You have no idea what you're asking. I've already lost too much. I can't afford. Maybe you're not the only one afraid of losing something, I said, my voice breaking despite me. That made her stop. Slowly, she turned, studying me with eyes that seemed to strip me bare. Her hand lifted halfway, as if she wanted to reach for me again. This time, she didn't pull back. She touched the side of my jaw, fingers featherlight but enough to make my entire body still. You'll regret me, she murmured. I shook my head. I've never been so sure of anything. For a long moment, she just looked at me, thumb brushing the line of my cheekbone. There was no sound except the steady rain outside, no movement except the rise and fall of our breaths. And then, her phone buzzed again on the counter. The same name flashing across the screen. She jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. I couldn't help it. Who is he? Her silence was answer enough. Are you still with him? My voice cracked, the jealousy raw, ugly. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger but in pain. You think this is about him? Then what is it about? I demanded. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the phone, stared at it, then set it down without a word. Her shoulders shook once, barely noticeable, like she was holding something back. I moved closer again, my voice low, almost desperate. Say something. Anything. Just don't keep pretending. Her eyes lifted, blazing with something I couldn't name. You don't know what you're asking for, she whispered. I leaned in, so close now my lips hovered a breath from hers. Then show me. And just as her mouth parted, just as the moment teetered on the edge of no return, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the hallway. We froze. The front door shut again, my boss's voice drifting down the hall as he answered a call, laughter echoing faintly. She and I didn't move. The distance between us buzzed with everything unsaid, everything barely restrained. Then her phone lit up again. Same name. But this time, it didn't just ring, it buzzed with a message preview. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. You can't keep avoiding me. He'll find out. The words burned into me. She saw my eyes flick down, saw the way my expression shifted, and in that second, I knew I wasn't supposed to have seen it. She snatched the phone, locking the screen, but it was too late. What does that mean? My voice was raw, too loud. Who's going to find out? Her face tightened. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I snapped. Her silence stretched, heavy, unbearable. She looked older suddenly, not because of years, but because of the weight pressing down on her. I made mistakes, she said finally. Ones I can't undo. That doesn't answer anything. She gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white. It means there are people who would use you to hurt me. Her eyes lifted to mine, pleading. And I can't let that happen. The words cut deeper than I expected. So what? I'm just a liability to you. Her lips parted, pained. You're the one thing I can't afford to want. That should have been the end. A boundary, final. But the truth was already loose between us. My chest ached with a mixture of jealousy, anger, and something darker I couldn't name. Does he know about me? I asked, quieter now, the question shaking. Her eyes flickered, a tiny crack in her calm. I stepped closer, searching her face. He does, doesn't he? That's why he's threatening you. Her silence was enough. For the first time since this started, it felt like I was the one standing too close to the fire. My throat tightened. You should have told me. I wanted to protect you, she whispered. I laughed, bitter. From what? From you? That hurt her. I saw it in the way her jaw clenched, in the way she pressed her hand against her chest like she could keep her heart from breaking open. Neither of us spoke after that. The sound of my boss's footsteps came again, closer this time, moving toward the kitchen. She reached out suddenly, fingers brushing mine, just once, soft, almost frantic. A touch that said what her words couldn't, don't give me away. The doorframe filled with my boss's shadow. He walked in, smiling, casual, unaware. Everything okay in here? I pulled my hand back just in time. My voice cracked when I answered. Yeah. Fine. But nothing was fine anymore. My boss rummaged in the fridge, humming, completely unaware. She stood across from me, face composed, but her eyes, God, her eyes, pleaded with me not to say anything. When he finally left the kitchen again, carrying a plate of leftovers upstairs, the silence slammed back into place. She leaned against the counter, covering her face with both hands. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. Something inside me cracked. Then don't push me away. Tell me the truth. Choose me. Her hands dropped. She looked at me like I was asking her to step off a cliff. You don't understand what that would mean. Then make me understand. Her voice shook. If I let this happen, if I let you happen, I lose everything. My family, my reputation, my life as I know it. I stepped closer. And if you don't? You'll keep pretending none of this is real? She tried to look away, but I caught it, the flicker of longing she couldn't bury fast enough. You're too young, she said again, weaker this time. You'll wake up one day and realize you wasted your years on someone like me. Stop deciding for me. My voice broke. Don't you get it? You're not some mistake I'll regret. You're the only thing that makes sense. Her breath hitched. She shook her head, as if fighting against herself. Then, suddenly, she pushed away from the counter, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. I can't do this. I can't. I caught her wrist. Not forceful, just enough to stop her. She stilled, trembling under my touch. We stood like that, too close, hearts beating in sync. Her eyes lifted to mine, raw and wet. For once, there were no lies, no masks. Just her. I'm terrified of you, she admitted, voice barely audible. Because when I'm with you, I feel alive. And that means I could lose everything I've built to survive. I swallowed hard, the words cutting me open. Then maybe surviving isn't enough anymore. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, she reached up, slowly, cautiously, like every inch was a battle. Her fingertips brushed the side of my face, lingering there, trembling. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't even a promise. But in that fragile touch, I knew she was choosing me, even if she'd never say it out loud. We stayed like that, suspended in something that felt both dangerous and holy, until the creak of floorboards overhead snapped us back. She pulled her hand away, breathing hard. "This isn't finished," she whispered, almost desperate. I nodded, throat tight. "Then don't let it be." Her eyes locked on mine, filled with fear, regret, and something that looked like hope. For the first time, I knew she felt it too, not just longing, not just guilt, but something real. And though we didn't kiss, though no confession was spoken aloud, the choice hung between us, undeniable. Whatever came next, we'd already crossed the line. I left that night with my heart still thundering in my chest. The rain had stopped by then, leaving the streets slick and shining under the glow of the street lamps. I walked slowly, replaying every second, the almost touch, the words she had whispered, the way she'd looked at me like I was both a danger and a lifeline. The next morning at the office, I saw her again. My boss chatted casually with her in the hallway, as if nothing had shifted, as if the world hadn't tilted sideways the night before. She wore her calm like armor again, composed, polite, untouchable. But when her eyes flicked to mine, just for a second, the air tightened. That glance said more than words. We both knew what had happened in that kitchen wasn't an accident. It wasn't weakness, or a moment of madness. It was the truth breaking through, whether we wanted it to or not. Days turned into weeks, and somehow, we learned the rhythm of it. Brief meetings. Accidental brushes of hands when no one was looking. Conversations that stayed polite on the surface but pulsed with everything underneath. At first, it felt unbearable, the way we kept circling each other, never naming it. But then I realized something. It wasn't about the kiss we hadn't shared, or the nights we hadn't stolen yet. It was about the choice we had already made. She chose not to run from me. And I chose not to walk away. One evening, when we were alone again, this time without interruptions, she finally let herself breathe. She told me more about the marriage that broke her, about the years she had spent convincing herself she didn't deserve to want more. She admitted that every time she looked at me, she saw a future she'd buried long ago, one she didn't know if she was brave enough to reach for. I didn't give her speeches. I just listened. And when her voice cracked, I held her hand without saying anything, because sometimes silence carries the loudest truths. We didn't solve everything that night. We didn't promise forever. But we stopped pretending it wasn't real. And in that small, fragile honesty, I felt something shift, like maybe we weren't walking toward regret anymore. Maybe we were walking toward a beginning. It wasn't easy. The risks were still there, the shadows of what people would say, the whispers that could ruin us both. But when she looked at me across a crowded room, or when her laughter broke through her carefully built walls, I knew I'd rather risk everything than spend a lifetime safe but empty. She once told me she was terrified of me, because I made her feel alive again. What she didn't realize was, she did the same for me. So maybe this story isn't about forbidden love, or age, or fear. Maybe it's about two people daring to believe that even the most complicated moments can lead to something worth remembering forever.